Welcome everyone to the 2026 ITP Australia and New Zealand Patient Conference. The original purpose of the charity was to provide information and support to pretty much lonely, rare disease patients. ITP patients rarely understand the disease before they're first diagnosed, and they certainly have limited contact with other ITP patients. So this is a great opportunity for all of us to welcome you, to talk to you, to share our stories, to share your story and understand what you're going through. You're the absolute ultimate reason that the charity exists and the reason we're here today.
Welcome to Beyond the Count. I'm founder and CEO of ITP Australia and New Zealand and your host, Danielle Boyle. This is a space created for the ITP community by the ITP community, where we share real stories, expert insights, and everything in between. Whether you're living with immune thrombocytopenia, supporting someone who is, or just curious about what life looks like beyond the bruises and the blood tests, you're in the right place. So whether you're driving, out for a walk, folding the laundry, or just sitting back and tuning in, let's dive in and go beyond the count. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. We're taking a step back in time, just a little over a month ago, when we held our 6th annual in-person patient conference. This year, we travelled to Victoria and came together at Melbourne Town Hall, and the theme for this year's conference was Knowledge, Connection and Confidence. And the day was packed with insights, breakthroughs, a little bit of laughter and some incredibly powerful moments. Whether you were in the room with us or you're catching up on all that happened from the comfort of your home or wherever you're listening from now, this episode brings you the very best of the conference, including some direct quotes from our amazing presenters. So let's dive in. We opened the conference with a session that set the tone for the entire day, and we took a deep dive into platelet biology with Professor Elizabeth Gardiner from the ANU, or Australian National University. And if you've ever been told your platelet count doesn't match your symptoms, this presentation explained exactly why. Professor Gardiner began by reminding us what platelets actually are. Not just numbers on a blood test, but complex active fragments that play roles far beyond clotting.
Platelets are not just little socks of membrane. They are full of granules. There's at least 3 different types of granule. They have their own glycogen store. They have mitochondria. The only thing they don't have is genomic DNA.
She explained how platelets are produced in the bone marrow by megakaryocytes and showed stunning new imagery that reveals just how these cells release into the bloodstream. This research is helping scientists understand why platelet production varies between one person to another and why some people with ITP may have platelets that behave differently from others. But the key message from her talk was this: platelet count alone does not predict bleeding. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I know for me and for many of us in the room, it was a real moment of validation.
So, 2 people with a platelet count of 50, one may have real bleeding issues, anything from blood nose to having a tooth pulled and it bleeds and bleeds for days. And that other person, also with a platelet count of 50, going through the same sort of traumas, doesn't bleed. So it's trying to understand on a molecular level and help doctors make some decisions around therapies for those 2 people that have exactly the same platelet count but are both at risk of bleeding.
Liz showed how platelets behave differently depending on the different blood vessels, the speed of the blood flow, and the nature of the injury. In arteries, platelets form dense, tightly packed clots. In veins, however, they behave a little bit differently, forming looser structures with fewer platelets involved. This helped explain why platelet patterns vary so much between one patient to another, even though they have similar platelet counts. She also shared emerging research showing that ITP platelet function, and not just the platelet number, can be impaired. Using advanced tools like different types of testing, her team can now identify patterns whose platelets don't form strong clots, even when the count looks safe.
My point is essentially to say we work on a lot of these sorts of problems, trying to understand what happens normally and then what happens in people who are at risk of clotting or bleeding. And so you can see here, we can separate out now and we can identify and begin to evaluate the people with the low platelet count who are bleeding versus someone here also with a platelet count of 20 who is not bleeding.
This is a major step forward for personalised ITP care. Professor Gardiner's presentation gives patients and clinicians a deeper understanding of why ITP behaves so differently from one person to the next. It helps the wider community move beyond the idea that low platelet counts always mean bleeding. And today, the more nuanced and more compassionate and more scientifically grounded the approach from clinicians and care can be in the future. Our next session for the day was one that every patient in the room could completely resonate with, understanding treatment side effects and making sense of the risk. Dr. Danny Hsu delivered a clear, practical and often reassuring guide to why side effects happen, why medication leaflets look so terrifying, and how to interpret the risk without actually panicking. Danny used a number of analogies throughout his presentation, and I have to say that the one that resonated most with the whole audience was the lock and key problem.
So I'm going to use this analogy that if you imagine the body, essentially a house, and a very complicated house, with many, many, many locks and doors. And really our treatments, well, what we want it to be, ideally, is the one key that unlocks that specific door that will stop our platelets being destroyed in ITP. Now, of course, the problem is, though, some of these keys can open other doors as well.
He explained that steroids, for example, are like master keys. They turn down the immune system to raise platelets, but they also open other doors that we're not expecting, like mood control, sleep, and blood sugar. That's why side effects like mood swings, insomnia, and appetite changes when taking steroids are so common. Then he moved to the second reason why side effects happen, when treatments work too well. Using TPOs or thrombopoietin receptor agonists as an example, and we're talking Revelade, we're talking Nplate and Doptelet, he discussed how these medicines act like megaphones shouting at the bone marrow to wake up, make platelets.
Our treatments, in fact, do too good a job. So it kind of stimulates the grandfather cells, or we call the megakaryocytes, to basically give birth to more platelets. And of course, that's great in raising the platelet count. But unfortunately, we know that as your bone marrow factory is literally being whipped into making more of these platelets, you're going to have some side effects of sometimes aches and pains. So that's sort of an overachieving effect of our medications causing a particular side effect.
The next analogy was the demolition team. It's a simple explanation for why infusion reactions happen in treatments like rituximab. When rituximab destroys B cells, the debris triggers an alarm in the body, causing chills, fevers, or even a rash. It's not actually an allergy, it's an immune system responding to the cleanup. Danny also explained the role of the liver and kidneys, the cleanup crew. Once the drug has done its job, the body has to break it down and remove it. Now that process can irritate liver cells, causing temporary changes in blood tests. But because genetics, age, and diet all influence how we process medicines, side effects vary wildly from person to person.
I guess, yes, these drugs, when you look at it, there might be a potential, but really there's all these other external factors that doesn't mean you're destined to definitely have a side effect from that particular medication.
This is when Danny shifted to one of the most anxiety-provoking parts of treatment. Danny explained that these long lists of side effects come from clinical trials where researchers must record every symptom a participant experiences, even if it's not caused by the drug that they're taking.
Essentially, during the trial, as researchers, we have to document every single symptom the patient tells us during the course of the trial. For the whole follow-up phase, regardless whether the drug actually caused it, right? And very importantly, I mean, those side effects, it's raw population data. It is not a prophecy that you will lose your hair or you will have a normal liver function. And I think that's really, really important.
He then tackled the language of risk, words like common, uncommon, and rare. These terms are mandated by regulators, but research shows that patient interpretation are very, very different to the actual statistics shown.
What was a common side effect, and that's defined as 1 to 10%, in patients, that's interpreted on average as a 34%, or is the rate or the incidence of what is considered to be a common side effect. So you can see the discrepancy, right? It is 3 to 30 times higher than what the actual reality is in terms of the incidence. When we look at then what is considered a rare side effect, the reality is 0.1 or 0.001%. Patients are interpreting rare as something as high as 18%. That's 1 in 5. So I think this is something that we're going to keep in mind, that words carry power.
To help make risk more tangible, Danny introduced the community risk scale, mapping probabilities to something familiar like family, a street, a village, or a town.
Another way that we could think of course, is trying, visualize risk in terms of distance. Now, we're talking about 1 in a million then. That's trying to find a 1 metre stick for us driving from Sydney to Perth. Pretty bloody rare, right?
And finally, Danny spoke about the information styles and how we all take in information. There's the sticky beak, who wants to know every single detail, and then the she'll be right patient, who prefers less information to avoid the anxiety. Both styles are valid, and what matters is telling your clinician what you need. He also closed with a reminder that patients are partners in their care.
And really, this is really an integral part of that became an active participant in your healthcare. So communication is absolutely a two-way street. Ask as many questions as you need. You're in charge. You get to absorb, you get to consider. Ultimately, you get to make the choice.
Danny's presentation helps patients understand why side effects happen, how to interpret risk without fear, and how to communicate the information that they need clearly. It empowers the wider ITP community to make treatment decisions with confidence rather than confusion or anxiety. And if this resonates with you, we'll be doing a 4-part podcast series with Danny shortly, diving deeper into risk, side effects, and how to make sense of all the medical language in a way that truly supports you, the patients. After morning tea, we turned our attention to one of the most important and often overlooked groups in the ITP community, children and teenagers. Dr. Melanie Jackson, a paediatric haematologist from Queensland Children's Hospital, delivered a compassionate and deeply insightful session on what it means to grow up with ITP. Melanie began by reminding us that adolescence is already a complex, transformative life stage, even without a chronic disease layered on top.
And I propose that navigating ITP in adolescence poses many more problems than just those from ITP. It's a complex interplay between the actual ITP and the developmental process of adolescence.
She explained that while many children recover quickly, a significant number do not.
Many, and you often hear paediatric ITP is a different entity, it just gets better, which I debate. 65% of these will actually recover in the first 6 months. A further 10% will be expected to recover in the next 6 to 12 months, but that leaves 25, potentially up to 30%, depending on what data you're looking at, that go on to become chronic. And chronic is defined as more than 12 months. Some will continue to have ITP much longer than that.
And for families, one of the hardest parts is the uncertainty.
When I'm meeting a new patient with ITP, a lot of people want to know when it's going to get better. Will I have chronic ITP? And unfortunately, without that magic ball, I can't tell patients that. And that is one of the struggles of paediatric ITP and adolescent ITP.
Melanie walked us through the developmental milestones of adolescence: identity, independence, emotional regularity, peer relationships, and the shift towards abstract thinking. These are huge tasks for any young person, and chronic illness can complicate every single one of these. She described how normal teenage behaviours, staying up late, mood swings, risk-taking and wanting privacy, can collide with the realities of ITP. Things like medication adherence, attending appointments or avoiding high-risk activities can become flashpoints for frustration, rebellion or even fear. She also highlighted the impact on families. Chronic illness doesn't just impact the young person, it affects parents, siblings, routines, and the emotional well-being of the entire ecosystem.
Having an adolescent in the family who's got chronic illness, of course this poses stress to the family. It focuses on the child's illness with often unintentional neglect on other aspects of that child, such as their schooling, their sport, the normal aspects of being an adolescent. Life can become about the illness more so than about just everything.
Melanie emphasised that adolescents with ITP face challenges that are often dismissed and minimised by the medical system. Comments like, "It will just get better," or "Kids don't get chronic ITP," don't reflect the lived reality of some of these young people or the seriousness of some of their symptoms. She also spoke about the unique risks in adolescence: fatigue, menstrual cycles, steroid side effects, risk-taking behaviours, time away from school, sport, social life, and the emotional toll of the unpredictability of ITP. She reminded us that adolescence is a time when identity is forming, and as a diagnosis, ITP can shake that foundation. But Melanie didn't just outline the challenges. She also offered a roadmap for support.
So this is very much a team approach, as I'm sure it is with adults as well. It's great to have a team that's involved in your care. So the medical team, the nurses, the doctors, the family unit, the young person, and anyone else that they want in their circle.
She highlighted the importance of education, extra appointments early on in the ITP diagnosis, developmental appropriate resources, and patient support groups like ITP ANZ. She encouraged clinicians and families to really read the room, involve the young person in decisions at a pace that feels right for them, and to validate their experiences. She also reminded us that connection matters.
A lot of teenage patients, no matter what their diagnosis, tell me that connecting with other people with that disorder really is helpful for them.
Mel's presentation helped young people feel seen, heard and understood, and it helps families and clinicians appreciate the complexity of adolescence in a way that leads to better support, better communication and ultimately better outcomes. It reinforces that with the right care, young people with ITP can not just survive but thrive, build resilience and continue to grow into confident, capable adults. The next presentation with Dr. Sara Ng explored women's health through the lens of ITP, with a particular focus on menopause. And for many of women in the room, this session finally connected some of the dots between hormonal changes, ageing, and platelet-related symptoms. Sara opened with a powerful reminder that women are managing far more than just a platelet count.
What we need to remember is that women with ITP don't just manage platelets. They manage platelets alongside the natural, sometimes turbulent physiological shifts of their reproductive and then post-reproductive lives.
She walked us through major hormonal stages from the first period to perimenopause, menopause and even post-menopause, and highlighted just how significant this phase of life has become.
So if you look at it now, menopause actually contributes about 43% of your lifetime for some women. It's one of the most significant biological and health-related changes that women will face. And some people go through it easily, some people not so much.
A key message was the risk of symptom confusion. Many women assume that every bruise or bleed must be because of ITP, or on the flip side, everything is just menopause.
So if you assume that every bruise is your ITP, then you might want to get treated for your ITP, and that might be unnecessary. But assume that every bout of bleeding or every bruise is your menopause, then you might miss a platelet nadir. So I think you really need to understand your disease, understand your unique bleeding phenotype, which, Liz's talk earlier to try and help us work out what everyone's bleeding phenotype is really helpful for women who are going through perimenopause, through menopause, and have ITP.
Sara also addressed brain fog, fatigue and concentration issues, symptoms that can often overlap with ITP. Steroid use, poor sleep, iron deficiency or hormonal changes. For many women, this was a moment of real clarity.
And it's a big thing in menopause or perimenopause because the hippocampus, which is the area that helps us make memories, and the prefrontal cortex for learning and higher order tasks are rich with estrogen receptors. And without that estrogen during menopause or perimenopause, these symptoms become more prominent. And let's not forget iron deficiency. Skyrockets during this time because, you've got a propensity to bleed and you've got a natural reason to bleed as well. So that's something we need to screen for as well.
She also broke down the clotting risk in a way that felt a little bit less frightening.
So ITP carries an increased risk of experiencing a clot, which can occur up to 8% of patients. The baseline risk is 1 in 1,000 for women between 50 to 59. So if it's twofold, it's 2 in 1,000.
And she emphasised that managing women's health in ITP is rarely something a single clinician can do on their own.
I think what we need to remember, it's not an either-or treatment approach. It must happen concurrently because we don't know. If you just happen to be that woman who gets diagnosed with ITP at the time that you're going through perimenopause, we don't know what's causing which. So it might be looking at starting something for your platelet count to go up a little bit and then starting treatment for your menopause. So it needs to all happen hand in hand rather than saying, let's do this and then do this and then do this and do this. It's not worth, trialing and waiting because sometimes these symptoms, it's quite a big symptom burden. And then once we've fixed it, we can start taking things back and seeing what actually is helping the problem.
Now, Sara's presentation gave women the language, understanding and confidence to recognise what their bodies were actually going through and to seek the right type of care from the right specialist. It helps the wider ITP community by reducing some of the fear, improving communication and ensuring that symptoms are interpreted accurately rather than automatically attributing it to ITP.
Thanks to our sponsor Sobi for their ongoing support of ITP Australia and New Zealand and our podcast Beyond the Count.
Now, one of the most empowering sessions of the day and a personal favourite came from Nurse Practitioner Rebecca Dring, who spoke about something that sits at the heart of good healthcare, shared decision making. Rebecca began by defining it simply and clearly. It's a collaborative process with both the clinician and the patient brings something essential to the table.
So what is shared decision making? It's a collaborative approach. It's a shared approach between you and your healthcare professional.
She explained that clinicians contribute their medical expertise, the science, the treatments, the evidence, and the options available. But patients bring something just as important: their lived experience, their values, their goals, and what matters most to them day to day.
So it's really important that you are involved in the decision making of any treatment. You're going to bring your life experiences and your ambitions and what you might be planning and taking on the expertise that your health professionals have so that you can actually take that information and together we'll try and work out a plan or a goal that will actually help you achieve what you want to achieve.
Rebecca emphasised that shared decision making is built on a two-way communication. Patients should feel comfortable sharing their symptoms, concerns and preferences, and clinicians should listen, clearly explain and provide unbiased, evidence-based information. She reminded the audience that understanding treatment options isn't just helpful, it's a right. She also highlighted the importance of patient empowerment, asking questions, seeking clarification, and being confident in your role in the decision-making process.
So what are the benefits? There's an improved understanding of treatment outcomes. There's increased treatment satisfaction. We actually find that when people are actually engaged in their care and in actually having some knowledge about it, there's actually a better adherence to your care. It empowers you to actually be your own health advocate.
Rebecca shared some practical tips for identifying goals of care. thinking about what's important to you, understanding who is involved in your care, keeping track of your progress, and recognising that your goals can change over time. Life evolves, and your treatment plan should evolve with it. She also addressed common barriers. Many patients feel intimidated, unsure what to ask, or worried about being a burden. Rebecca reassured everybody that it is absolutely okay to ask questions, to request clarification, and even if you'd like to, seek a second opinion.
So if you don't understand something, please ask for clarification. It's all about being able to have the confidence and to be able to go forward and see what you can do as a team.
And she closed with a message that resonated deeply across the room.
So never be afraid to voice it, because at the end of the day, it's your body, it's your life. It's your disease, it's your journey, and it's in partnership with your healthcare team.
Rebecca's presentation empowers patients to take more of an active role in their care, not by demanding more responsibility, but by giving them the confidence, tools, and language to participate meaningfully. It strengthens the partnership between the patients and the clinician, reduces some of the anxiety, helps ensure that treatment decisions reflect real lives, real goals, and what truly matters to each person living with ITP. Now, one of the most engaging and interactive sessions of the day came from Associate Professor Dr. Phil Choi, who took the audience through a myth-busting tour of ITP, separating fact from fiction in a way that was clear, reassuring, and often surprising. Phil opened by acknowledging that something many patients experience, the sheer amount of misinformation, assumption, and outdated beliefs that circulate around ITP. His goal was simple: to give patients the clarity that they deserve. He began with a common misconception about rituximab.
So rituximab is actually a commonly used medication in ITP. It is part of chemotherapy that we often use for cancer patients, but it's not chemo in the sense that it's going to make you lose your hair and make you really sick that way. But there's always side effects with every medication.
Next, he tackled one of the biggest myths in ITP, that the platelet count will always predict bleeding.
The platelet count itself doesn't really predict too well for bleeding. And there are people who have sometimes single-digit platelets and not a skerrick of bleeding whatsoever.
This resonated deeply with patients who are often told to fear that the number of their blood tests is more than their actual symptoms. Phil then moved to fatigue, a symptom that is often dismissed and misunderstood.
Fatigue's a common symptom that all of us experience with or without ITP, and probably even before you had ITP. It's even seen as the number one most dominant side effect of ITP on patient surveys.
He emphasised that fatigue is real, it's common, and it's part of the disease. It's not a sign of weakness or something that patients are imagining. He also addressed myths around daily life, including travel.
There's no real platelet count that is a threshold for safety when you're flying. People with single-digit platelets can fly quite safely.
This was a huge relief for many people in the room who've been told otherwise. Phil also reassured patients about pregnancy.
And just because you have ITP before pregnancy doesn't mean your ITP is going to get worse or be too dangerous just because you want to start a family. These are still all very real possibilities. It's just going to take a bit of extra care, a bit of extra testing, a bit of extra shared care management decision making, and hopefully the assistance of great practice nurses like Rebecca.
He then moved to treatment myths, explaining failing one thrombopoietin receptor agonist doesn't mean that the whole class won't work. Each medication behaves differently, and many patients respond well to a second option. He also clarified that clinical trials aren't only for people who run out of options. Many trials now include patients who are early in their treatment journey, offering access to new therapies and close monitoring. Phil also addressed the clotting risk too, something that many patients assume they're protected from because they've got a low platelet count.
Patients with ITP absolutely can get blood clots. it does happen.
He examined that clotting risk can increase after splenectomy, and with certain treatments, it's manageable when clinicians are aware and monitoring appropriately. He also tackled the belief that ITP runs in the family. While autoimmune conditions can cluster, true familial ITP is rare, and many families historically labelled as ITP may have had a different diagnosis altogether. Finally, Phil addressed concerns around vaccines.
There will absolutely be some of you whose platelet counts will fall after you've had a vaccination. And in fact, it probably reflects that your ITP is a little unstable already.
He emphasises that while vaccinations can rock the boat, so can viral infections, emotional stress, and even travel.
They don't actually make the disease worse. They don't change the disease, just like a viral illness doesn't really change the disease. And you stand to gain a lot more from being protected from an infection than to run the risk of not having any protection.
Phil's session gave patients something incredibly valuable: permission to stop fearing the myths and start trusting the facts. His clear, evidence-based explanations help reduce anxiety, empower informed decisions, and support a more confident, grounded understanding of what it's like living with ITP. Later in the afternoon, I had a chance to share a little of my own story. Not because it's unique, but because it mirrors the experiences of so many others living with ITP. My diagnosis came out of nowhere. I felt completely well, yet my platelet count was 16. I was started on prednisolone, was admitted to hospital in the haematology oncology ward, so I definitely didn't look sick, and after a few days was sent home with a condition I'd never heard of and no idea what the next few weeks would look like. What followed was a blur of fatigue, anxiety, bruising, and the emotional whiplash of not knowing what each day would bring. Eventually, I found myself trying to make sense of a condition that wasn't predictable. But everything changed when I met other people living with ITP. Being able to speak to somebody else that understands what you're going through is the best thing in the world, because you know you've got some support there. The connection, that moment of being understood, was the turning point for me. It's what eventually led to me building this community, the organisation ITP Australia and New Zealand. And while I feel I've shared my story a million times over, something powerful happens when the images and the words come together. They don't just resonate with patients and the support crew, they show the real side of ITP, warts and all. The part that happens outside clinic rooms, outside blood tests, outside the neat little boxes that we're often put into. And over the years, I've learned how important it is for patients to be part of the conversation. I get to make sure that the patient voice is included in absolutely everything coming down the pipeline because, frankly, nothing about us without us. Sharing my story isn't about spotlighting my journey. It's about reminding every person living with ITP that they are not alone, that their experiences matter, and together we can build a community where every voice is heard and every story has power. Now, the last session in the program, we turned to something central to everything that we do at ITP ANZ. It was about what you told us. Late last year and early this year, we ran a patient survey across Australia and New Zealand to better understand your experiences, your challenges, and what you need from us as a community. We had over 70 respondents, a strong number for those living with a rare disease, and what stood out most was the diversity. People from a wide range of cultural backgrounds and ages spanning across young adults through to mature age patients. And it gave us a realistic snapshot of what it's like living with ITP from right across Australia and New Zealand. One of the first areas we explored was the road to diagnosis. The triggers were familiar: bruising, abnormal bleeding, routine blood tests. But the time to diagnosis was confronting. So almost 40% of patients, this took more than a month more than a month to be diagnosed. So we talk about the physical impact, the bruising, the bleeding and those sorts of things. But the emotional impact patients actually go through compared to before they were diagnosed is actually quite shocking. Before diagnosis, more than half of the responders described their mental well-being as pretty good. After diagnosis, that dropped sharply, with 38% reporting poor to very poor mental health. And even today, a significant number remain within that space. This mirrors what every presenter has touched on. But you look at the anxiety, the fatigue, the sleep issues. Some of that is tied to prednisolone and dexamethasone, and then depression. Depression is huge, 44% of respondents. But having that support network for our patients as well, I think, is definitely a pathway that we want to be looking at in the coming years. The invisible burden came through strongly within the survey. Fatigue, anxiety around the platelet count, and the fear of bleeding were the top daily challenges. Fatigue alone was reported by 84% of respondents. It's not just the number, it's the uncertainty, the unpredictability, and the constant mental load. We also looked at the treatment journeys. Many respondents had been on multiple therapies, some 3, 4, or even 5. And that reflects the reality of ITP. It's a process of elimination, and we still don't have a perfect way to predict who will respond to what. Danny spoke directly to this.
And we know that there's no perfect drug where there's zero risk, right? And of course, what we're hoping for, and not just in ITP, but in all doctors, we're hoping the benefits of the drug far, far, far outweighs the potential risk of side effects.
We also asked about clinical trials. 71% had never, ever been offered a clinical trial, despite Australia having multiple active trials. Encouragingly, many said they would actually consider participating, not just for themselves, but for helping future patients. When you take a step back and look at the big picture, the message is clear. ITP affects every part of life, physically, emotionally, socially, and mentally. And while the challenges are real, so is the strength of this community. We hear you, we understand, we support you to help deliver and improve your quality of life and help you, navigate this ITP journey. These insights aren't just numbers, they're a roadmap. They will shape what we deliver over the next 12 to 24 months, from education and advocacy to support programs, research, and more. And we'll keep building this together one step at a time. Before we wrap up, here are 4 key takeaways from the 2026 ITP Patient Conference in Melbourne. Number 1, knowledge is power. Understanding ITP, from platelet function to treatment risk, helps reduce fear and builds confidence. Number 2, connection matters. Whether you're newly diagnosed or decades into your journey like me, community support changes everything. Number 3, confidence grows with clarity. Ask questions, seek support, and stay informed. Shared decision-making, women's health, teen ITP, and treatment risk are all areas where clarity makes a huge difference. Number 4, your voice shapes the future. Your survey responses, your feedback, and your stories directly influence what we create next, from educational resources to research priorities and more. And just a reminder, we'll be exploring many of these topics in future editions of The Count magazine and in upcoming episodes of Beyond the Count. Plus, recordings from the conference will be available on our YouTube channel in the coming months, so you can revisit the sessions or catch up on anything that you might have missed. So as we come to the end of the highlights episode, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the people who made the 2026 ITP Patient Conference such an incredible day. To our presenters who shared their expertise with such generosity, to our medical advisors who continue to guide and strengthen our community, to our sponsors for their ongoing commitment, and of course to every single person who joined us in Melbourne. Thank you so much. Your energy, your questions, and your willingness to connect are what makes this community so special. If you're looking for support, connection, or information, visit itpanz.org.au. You'll find The Count, our quarterly magazine, patient stories, treatment information sheets, clinical guidelines, and a wide range of resources designed to help you and your family feel informed and supported. Most importantly, you'll know that you're not alone. There's a whole community here just waiting for you. If this episode was helpful, please share it with others in the ITP community and leave us a review on your podcast platform. It helps more people find Beyond the Count. We've got more expert conversations, patient stories, and more coming soon. So hit the follow or subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for listening as we go beyond the count together.